My office, a place that should have been a hub of productivity and professionalism, held a sinister secret, one that had cast a shadow over our workplace for as long as I could remember. It was a secret that no one dared to speak of openly, a dread that we all shared in hushed whispers by the water cooler or during smoke breaks outside. It was the basement, the dark, foreboding abyss that lay beneath our seemingly ordinary office building. There was a reason we didn't go down there, a reason that gnawed at the edges of our consciousness and sent shivers down our spines. The office had existed for decades, and the basement had been there just as long. But its purpose had always remained a mystery, a puzzle that no one had ever dared to solve. It wasn't just any basement. It was a place that exuded an aura of malevolence, a presence that seemed to seep up through the cracks in the floorboards. From the moment I had joined the company, I had been warned about the basement, by coworkers, by supervisors, by the very air of trepidation that hung over the office. Stay away from the basement, they had all said, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and resignation. But curiosity is a powerful force, and as the years went by, I found myself drawn to the enigma that lay beneath our feet. I couldn't help but wonder what secrets the basement held, what had transpired there to make it off-limits to all but a select few. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the office grew quiet, I decided to investigate. The building's custodian, an elderly man named Mr. Jenkins, had always been the keeper of the basement keys. With a sense of determination and a hint of trepidation, I approached him and made my request. He stared at me for a moment, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and reluctance. "Are you sure you want to go down there?" he asked, his voice a low, graveled whisper. I nodded, my curiosity outweighing my fear. Mr. Jenkins sighed and reluctantly handed me a tarnished keyring. "If you must," he muttered, his gaze lingering on the keys as if they held a terrible secret. As I descended the creaking stairs into the darkness of the basement, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was treading on forbidden ground. The air was thick with an oppressive weight, a sense of foreboding that clung to the walls like a malevolent presence. The basement itself was a maze of narrow corridors and dimly lit rooms. Dust and cobwebs covered every surface, giving the place an abandoned and forgotten feel. It was as if no one had set foot down here in decades. I made my way cautiously through the labyrinthine corridors, the dim light from my flashlight casting eerie shadows on the peeling wallpaper. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. As I explored deeper into the basement, I came across a series of locked doors, each one more imposing than the last. I tried the keys on the ring, one by one, until I finally found the one that fit. With a sense of trepidation, I turned the key in the lock and pushed open the heavy door. What I found inside left me gasping in horror. It was a room unlike any other, a chamber of nightmares, a place that defied all reason and explanation. The walls were lined with shelves, each one filled with row upon row of glass jars. Inside each jar was a grotesque tableau, a preserved specimen, a twisted aberration of nature. There were deformed animals, their bodies contorted and misshapen, as if they had been the subjects of cruel experiments. There were human organs, floating in formaldehyde, their origins and purpose a gruesome mystery. And then, in the center of the room, I saw it, the source of the malevolence that permeated the basement. It was a massive, ancient tome, its pages filled with symbols and incantations that sent a chill down my spine. It was a book of forbidden knowledge, a grimoire of darkness that should never have seen the light of day. As I reached out to touch the book, a voice whispered in my mind, a voice that was not my own, a voice that filled me with dread and terror. "You should not have come here," it hissed, its words echoing in the depths of my soul. I stumbled back in horror, my heart pounding in my chest. The basement was a place of unspeakable evil, a chamber of horrors that had been locked away for a reason. I had uncovered a secret that should have remained hidden, a truth that had shattered the illusion of normalcy in our office. I fled the basement, the echoes of that terrible voice still ringing in my ears. I returned the keys to Mr. Jenkins, who looked at me with a knowing sadness, as if he had expected this outcome all along. "We warned you," he said quietly, his eyes filled with a haunted resignation. I left the office that evening, my mind in turmoil, my thoughts consumed by the horrors I had witnessed in the basement. The knowledge that I had uncovered was a burden that weighed heavily on my soul, a truth that had forever changed the way I saw the world. And as I walked away from the office, I couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay hidden beneath the surface, what other horrors lurked just out of sight, waiting to be uncovered by those who dared to seek the truth. In the days that followed my ill-fated expedition into the basement, I couldn't escape the feeling that something had changed within me. The malevolent presence I had encountered in that chamber of horrors seemed to linger, a shadow that haunted my every waking moment. My nights were plagued by nightmares, vivid, disturbing dreams that left me drenched in cold sweat. In these dreams, I would find myself back in the basement, surrounded by the grotesque specimens in their glass jars. The ancient tome beckoned to me, its pages filled with cryptic symbols that danced before my eyes. And always, there was that whispering voice, an insidious, inhuman voice that whispered secrets and incantations that I couldn't comprehend. It spoke of ancient rituals, of dark powers that could reshape reality itself. It promised knowledge beyond imagination, but at a terrible cost. I would wake from these nightmares with a sense of dread that clung to me like a second skin. It was as if the basement's malevolent presence had infiltrated my very soul, leaving me with an insatiable curiosity, a curiosity that was slowly driving me mad. I couldn't resist the pull of the basement. Despite the horrors I had witnessed, the forbidden knowledge that had been thrust upon me, I found myself returning to that accursed place, night after night. Each time, I would descend the stairs with a sense of trepidation, my heart pounding in my chest. The basement had become an obsession, a place of both terror and fascination. I couldn't escape the feeling that there was more to discover, more secrets to uncover. The ancient tome, in particular, called to me with an irresistible allure. Its pages held the promise of answers, of forbidden knowledge that could unlock the mysteries of the universe. One evening, as I stood before the book, my hand trembling as I reached out to touch its pages, the voice in my dreams spoke to me once more. "You seek the truth," it whispered, its words like a siren's song, luring me deeper into the abyss. "You are chosen." With a sense of resignation, I opened the book and began to read. The symbols and incantations danced before my eyes, their meaning slowly becoming clear to me. I was learning secrets that no human was meant to know, ancient rituals that could bend reality to my will, dark powers that could reshape the world. But with each page I turned, a terrible realization dawned upon me. The knowledge I was gaining came at a price I was willing to pay, no matter the consequences. The basement's malevolent presence had claimed me, body and soul, and I had become its willing servant. As I delved deeper into the forbidden knowledge, I began to experiment with the rituals and incantations I had uncovered. I discovered that I could manipulate the very fabric of reality, that I could summon dark forces to do my bidding. The basement's secrets were now mine to command, and I reveled in the power they afforded me. But with each act of manipulation, with each summoning of malevolent entities, a darkness grew within me. I could feel the malevolent presence of the basement seeping into my very being, corrupting my soul. The nightmares that had plagued me now invaded my waking hours, and I could no longer distinguish between reality and illusion. My coworkers began to notice the change in me, my erratic behavior, my hollow eyes, my obsession with the basement. They kept their distance, whispering among themselves about my descent into madness. But I didn't care. I was beyond caring. One fateful day, as I performed a particularly potent ritual in the basement, I felt a surge of power unlike anything I had ever experienced. I had pushed the boundaries of reality to their limits, and the consequences were catastrophic. The basement seemed to come alive, its walls shifting and contorting as if they were made of liquid darkness. The very air crackled with malevolence, and I could hear a chorus of sinister whispers, as if a legion of malevolent entities had been unleashed. And then, with a deafening roar, the basement itself began to collapse in on me. The walls closed in, the ceiling descended, and I was trapped in a nightmarish labyrinth of shifting corridors and crushing darkness. As I struggled to escape, I could hear the same voice that had whispered to me in my dreams, the same voice that had promised me power and knowledge. But now it was filled with malevolence, a terrible laughter that echoed in the depths of my mind. In the end, I was consumed by the collapsing basement, my body and soul becoming one with the malevolent presence that had haunted that accursed place for so long. I became a part of the darkness, a vengeful spirit bound to the basement for all eternity. And so, the office with the forbidden basement remained a place of dread and unease, a place that no one dared to enter. The malevolent presence persisted, its hunger for knowledge and power as insatiable as ever. My coworkers would speak of my disappearance, of the madness that had consumed me. They would tell stories of the basement's secrets, of the forbidden knowledge that lurked within its walls. But no one would ever know the true extent of the horrors that had transpired there, the price that I had paid for my insatiable curiosity. The basement remained a dark and foreboding abyss, a place that would forever remain off-limits. The office, once a place of work and productivity, had become a place of terror and despair, a place where the boundaries of reality blurred, and the malevolent presence of the basement would forever haunt those who dared to come near. And as for me, I would remain trapped in that nightmarish labyrinth, a vengeful spirit bound to the basement, a prisoner of my own insatiable curiosity, a cautionary tale for all who sought to uncover the forbidden secrets that lurked in the shadows. In the wake of my disappearance, the office was never the same. The malevolent presence that had claimed me in the basement now seemed to seep into every nook and cranny of the building, infecting the very essence of the workplace. My former coworkers began to notice the changes. The flickering lights, the unexplained cold spots, the eerie sounds that echoed through the hallways at night. Some claimed to have seen shadowy figures moving in the corners of their vision, darting away whenever they tried to get a closer look. Fear and unease settled over the office like a thick fog, infecting the very atmosphere. Meetings were held in hushed voices, and water-cooler conversations revolved around the inexplicable events that had become a daily occurrence. The basement, once a place of unspeakable horrors, had become a focal point of dread. No one ventured near it, and even the custodian, Mr. Jenkins, refused to set foot in its vicinity. The keys to the basement had disappeared, as if they had never existed. But the malevolent presence refused to be confined to the basement alone. It seemed to reach out, its influence spreading like a cancer throughout the entire building. The nightmares that had plagued me were now shared by others. Dreams of the basement's secrets, of the whispering voice, of the ancient tome that promised forbidden knowledge. One by one, my former coworkers began to change. They became obsessed with the basement, drawn to its dark allure like moths to a flame. Some, like me, began to experiment with the rituals and incantations they had uncovered, seeking power and knowledge at any cost. Others, however, were consumed by the malevolent presence, their minds shattered by the horrors they had encountered. They became pale, hollow shells of their former selves, their eyes vacant and lifeless. They would wander the halls at night, muttering incomprehensible incantations, their voices filled with a dark, inhuman resonance. The office's descent into madness and despair was swift and relentless. The once thriving workplace became a place of torment and suffering, a haunted battleground where the malevolent presence clashed with the remnants of our humanity. Desperation led some to seek help from paranormal investigators, but their efforts proved futile. The malevolent presence seemed to revel in their attempts, taunting them with its malevolent laughter and defying all attempts at exorcism. As the office's decline continued, those who remained trapped within its walls lived in constant fear, their sanity hanging by a thread. Some resigned, fleeing the building in terror, their careers and lives forever scarred by their experiences. And then, one fateful night, as the malevolent presence's grip on the office tightened, the building itself seemed to come alive. Walls blotted with dark stains, furniture moved of its own accord, and the very structure of the building groaned and shifted, as if it were a living, breathing entity. The office became a nightmarish labyrinth, its corridors and rooms shifting and changing, leading those trapped within in endless circles of confusion and despair. It was as if the malevolent presence sought to torment us, to drive us to the brink of madness. In the end, I watched as my former coworkers succumbed, one by one, to the malevolent presence. Some vanished without a trace, their fates unknown. Others became twisted, malevolent beings, their humanity consumed by the darkness. And as for me, I remained trapped in the office, a vengeful spirit bound to the building for all eternity. My insatiable curiosity had led to my downfall, and now I was condemned to wander the shifting corridors, a prisoner of the malevolent presence that had claimed us all. The office, once a place of work and productivity, had become a place of eternal torment and suffering. The malevolent presence that had originated in the basement had now spread throughout the building, a malevolent force that defied all attempts to banish it. And so, the office's descent into darkness continued, its walls bearing witness to the horrors that had unfolded within. It had become a place where the boundaries of reality blurred, where the malevolent presence reigned supreme, and where those who dared to enter would forever be trapped in a nightmarish purgatory. A cautionary tale for all who sought to uncover the forbidden secrets that lurked in the shadows. The malevolent presence that had consumed the office was not content with its newfound domain. It hungered for more, for a chance to spread its darkness beyond the confines of the workplace. And as I wandered the shifting corridors, I could feel its insidious influence growing stronger, its malevolence seeping into the very walls and floors. The surrounding neighborhood began to feel the effects of the malevolent force that had taken root in the office. Reports of strange occurrences and unexplained phenomena began to surface. Residents living near the building spoke of eerie shadows that danced in the moonlight and unsettling whispers that drifted on the wind. The office's legacy was one of terror and despair, a stain on the neighborhood that would never fade. The building itself had become a place of dread, its windows boarded up, its doors locked tight. No one dared to approach it, for fear of the malevolent presence that still lurked within. Paranormal investigators and curious thrill-seekers ventured near the office, drawn by the tales of its haunting. But none returned unscathed. Some were driven to madness, their minds shattered by the malevolent force that dwelled within. Others simply vanished, their fates a mystery that would never be solved. As the years passed, the office became a place of urban legend, a cautionary tale told to children to keep them away from the haunted building. It was said that the malevolent presence had grown so powerful that it could reach out to those who dared to come near, luring them into its grasp with promises of forbidden knowledge and power. And then, one fateful day, a group of daring urban explorers decided to investigate the office for themselves. Armed with cameras and recording equipment, they ventured into the building, determined to capture evidence of the supernatural. Their footage would become infamous, a chilling testament to the malevolent force that still resided within the office. As they explored the darkened corridors and rooms, their cameras captured glimpses of shadowy figures, eerie whispers, and objects moving of their own accord. But the most horrifying discovery came when they reached the basement, the very heart of the malevolence. As they descended the creaking stairs, their cameras captured a sight that would haunt their nightmares for the rest of their lives. In the center of the basement, surrounded by jars of preserved horrors, they found a massive ancient tome, the same book that had called out to me, promising power and knowledge. Its pages were filled with symbols and incantations, and as one of the explorers reached out to touch it, a voice whispered in their minds. "You seek the truth," the voice hissed, its words dripping with malevolence. "You are chosen." The explorers fled the basement in terror, their cameras capturing their panicked flight. But the malevolent force was not satisfied with their departure. It reached out, its influence extending beyond the building's walls. In the weeks that followed, the explorers began to experience nightmares just as I had. The same whispering voice haunted their dreams, promising knowledge and power at a terrible cost. Some of them even began to experiment with the dark rituals and incantations they had uncovered, seeking to harness the malevolent force for their own purposes. But the malevolent presence was not to be trifled with. It exacted a terrible price for its knowledge and power, consuming the souls of those who dared to seek it. The explorers met grisly fates, their bodies found mutilated and contorted in grotesque and unnatural ways. The malevolent force that had claimed the office now extended its reach, its darkness spreading like a virus. It whispered to those who were curious, promising secrets that should never be known, luring them into its grasp with the allure of forbidden knowledge. And so, the office's legacy continued to grow, a dark stain on the neighborhood that would never fade. The malevolent presence that had taken root within its walls would forever haunt those who came near, a reminder of the horrors that lurked in the shadows, of the price that was paid for insatiable curiosity. As for me, I remained trapped within the shifting corridors of the office, a vengeful spirit bound to the building for all eternity. I had paid the price for my curiosity, and now I was condemned to wander its haunted halls, a prisoner of the malevolent force that had claimed us all. The office, once a place of work and productivity, had become a place of eternal torment and suffering. Its legacy was one of terror and despair, a cautionary tale for all who sought to uncover the forbidden secrets that lurked in the shadows, a warning that some knowledge was never meant to be known, some mysteries were never meant to be unraveled, and some places were best left unexplored.